Foreign Office fancy talking to us about all this tonight, but I am joined by the Shadow Foreign Secretary, Douglas Alexander, and by Menzies Campbell, former leader of the Liberal Democrats. Why has the Foreign Office become such a shambles since you joined government?
This has been a pretty difficult fortnight or so, but listen, I was in the United States last week, and they've had similar difficulties. Why? Because we've had a policy of successive governments for a very long time.
Sorry, have they had special forces taken prisoner by the rebels?
No, but they have done one or two things which have been
pretty
inept.
Have they Colonel Gaddafi's in Venezuela?
Well, they changed their minds.
Have they made a mess of collecting their own citizens?
But they've changed their minds over no-fly zones, for example, 3 times in 3 days. However, that's not to excuse the fact, in that rather colourful language that we've just heard, I think it was ill-conceived, I think it was poorly planned, and I think it was improperly executed. And that's why we found ourselves in this grossly embarrassing position.
Douglas Alexander, what would you have done differently?
Well, these are difficult judgments. I conceded that in the House of Commons today. But it's not the job of ministers simply to rubber stamp every proposal that comes onto their desk, for it is on the desk of the Foreign Secretary that security and diplomatic considerations come together. And frankly, it wasn't just that William Hague didn't seem to know the right answer. He didn't seem to know the right questions to be asking, as Ming made clear in the House of Commons today when this proposal was put to him.
Do you believe the explanation given by William Hague for this shambles?
No, but that's because special forces are involved. And I don't think we will ever be given a clear account. Maybe in 40 years when the Official Secrets Act all these documents out at Kew get opened up. I think there was something else going on. I think that's the only possible explanation. But right at the very heart of this is if you were doing something of a clandestine nature, then you would imagine that the preparations would have been absolutely 100%, that you would have sorted out in advance where you were going to go, how you were going to be received. None of that appears to have happened.
What has gone wrong? I mean, the Foreign Office is behaving like, frankly, you were too polite to say this, but to some outsiders, this looks like a troupe of stand-up comedians or something. One mistake after another. What's gone wrong there?
Well, I don't think that ministers have gripped this situation. If you take the first fiasco, which was the flights fiasco, getting British nationals out, I think they relied on advice from officials, which was ill-judged in circumstances where there was clearly a deteriorating situation. I simply have no account as to why William Hague personally, uniquely amongst European foreign ministers, decided to speculate publicly on the airwaves about the whereabouts of Gaddafi, and I simply can't understand why he didn't convene the Cobra Emergency Committee at a far earlier stage in the crisis. Then last week we had no-fly zones talked up and talked down within 24 hours. I think there are very serious questions about the engagement, the judgment, the understanding and the grip of Foreign Office ministers.
To come back to the issue, if I can come back to the issue of special forces, William Hague would not have decided that the means of entry was to be by helicopter. He would not have decided how many people were to go by way of protection. He would not have decided whether they went in daylight or in darkness. That all happened at an operational level. And so there are questions about the operational decisions. The one thing which...
What exactly the operation was, indeed.
Well, indeed. But the important thing, I think, to say in defence of William Hague is that he accepted full ministerial responsibility.
So you don't think his position's in any jeopardy?
I'm not sure just how enthusiastic he is about this business. I mean, it is very, very hard. Every weekend away, things of that nature.
Sorry, do you think he's not got the stomach for the fight?
No, I don't say that. But I just think that...
Not got the appetite for the job, then?
Well, I think it's a very, very demanding job.
It's always been a demanding job.
Yes, of course. But it's particularly demanding when you find yourself with a policy which everyone's accepted for 30 years in the Middle East, suddenly turned on its head. And whereas before you were putting your money on stability and security of oil supply, now what are you having to do? You're having to embrace democracy, rule of law,
are you
freedom of
the job's
expression.
Too difficult for him?
No, I'm not saying that at all. I just think it is a very difficult job for anyone.
Do you think his position's in jeopardy?
I think he actually has to get a grip. I mean, I think that the question is not as much his commitment as his judgment, because he's attempted to say, listen, anybody could be in circumstances where a plane doesn't take off from Gatwick. Why would we have convened Cobra? The problem for William Hague today in the House of Commons is he's rapidly getting form on ministerial misjudgments.
Well, the other thing is that we've now got a National Security Council which meets every week under the chairmanship of the Prime Minister, an innovation of which I heartily approve. But that's supposed to be the forum where these issues are hammered out in the presence of the intelligence chiefs, senior commanders, all of the relevant ministers. And a big question is the extent to which the National Security Council was engaged in this at all.
Thank you both very much. Thank you. Now there are just